Hello, everybody. I'm here for a solo podcast today, something a little bit different, something hopefully I'm going to be doing a little bit more of in the future, especially since Celine will be away raising the new addition to her family. And because, quite frankly, I have a lot of just thoughts that I think could be valuable to you guys. So, what I'm going to be talking about today is why self work actually is working on the business. Now, this is an interesting topic because when I was first getting started in my business, one thing that I heard all the time from my mentors when I was first getting going is that you have to set aside time to work on the business, not just in the business. And I think that it's easy to get lost working in the business instead of on the business, delivering projects, doing stuff that is actually delivering the work as opposed to working on the business, making sure that the business itself is growing. And I'll definitely be doing another episode on that concept because I think what that looks like evolves as we evolve as individuals. But as I went down deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole of growth and change and scaling at Anansi, I actually found myself coming back again and again to something that I didn't hear from my mentors, but that actually my stepdad told me when I first got going. And he told me, Sayada, schedule your off time. Schedule your off time and hold it sacred because you're an overachiever. You'll always find time to fit the work in, whether it's working in the business, whether it's on the business. If you need to get stuff done, you will get it done. But if you don't schedule in time to not be working at all, to be doing things that are working on you and working on your self-care, then they'll just never be fit in because you'll always see them as less important. And that was really interesting. At the time, I was like, ooh, that's good. I'll remember that. Of course, fast forward 3 or 4 years, and I wasn't quite there yet. I was more like working 50, 60 hours, really overwhelmed. And what that had turned into is, make sure that I turn off the computer by 9 p.m. because I know that if I don't, I'll dream all night of work and be non-functional the next day, which is not the same thing, right? Now, today, I usually work a maximum of 20 hours a week. If you've interacted with me within the business, you'll know I constrain my hours. I set strong boundaries. And a lot of people ask, when I was able to get to the point where I could do that. When was the business at that magical point where I could kind of step away and things would continue to run? And the fact of the matter is, although we did put a lot of intentional effort into the systems that make the business run, you can listen to pretty much any other digital agency Real Talk episode to hear about that. But it actually went a little bit differently than most people expected because I basically did what my stepdad said. I put that time into my schedule and held it sacred. One of the scariest things that I did was just took a whole day off of my schedule. I said, you know what? I'm not working 1 day a week. What do we have to do to fit everything in the rest of the days? But this isn't a podcast episode about, how to constrain your schedule and et cetera. We're going to go deeper than that even. Because the truth is that I made that time and it didn't magically happen. And that constraints actually breed creativity and innovation. So what I mean by that is that we didn't get creative and innovate so we could set that constraint. We set a constraint and then innovated within it, basically, and got creative within it. And that was something a little bit different. Now, what kept me going through this was really seeing the aha moments and clicks that came after a period of long being stuck. So what I mean by that is that the first time I did it, it was difficult and it was scary and it was hard and there was stuff that went wrong and et cetera when I started taking that time for myself. But what kept me doing it was not that having this relaxing time was so magical, I'm sorry to say, in the sense that I felt so much better. That was part of it. But actually, that within the business, I could really, really see the positive effects of taking this time because I'd be super, super stuck on an issue and feeling kind of like burnt out on it and just hitting a wall. And then I'd go away for 2 or 3 days or a week and come back and it would be like magic. The solution would be in my head. And that felt like real magic to me. Anyway, we often think that time off is important for preserving the person. And we at Anansi talk about that a lot. And I really, really think that's important. So don't lose that, right? But we often forget that it's important for the company because it actually leads to better work. Yes, that means you as a leader. It also means for those people on your team who are working their butts off and going above and beyond. But it also goes above time off, to be honest. It's not just about having the time to kind of like relax and have the time where you don't have work on your plate. Because, well, that doesn't always work either, right? Like I used to think that the cure for stress was relaxing, but I've come to realize that relaxing is actually the thing that you get to once you de-stress. And that it's important for us not just to have time off, but actually to do some self-work on top of the self-care to help make us be the kind of like best people that we can be for our business, for our life, for our relationships. And this has real and tangible results, not just in our life and not just in our relationships, but in our business. Let me tell you a little story. I was listening to another podcast, a guest that we've had on the show before. We're going to have on the show again, Jake Jorgevin. I just love his podcast, Working Without Pants, and just totally recommend that you check out his stuff. And I was listening to a podcast where he was talking about his own time working 20 hours a week at the beginning of this year and how he had like learned an instrument and all of these crazy new skills and had just gone into it. And I was like, man, I've always wanted to learn trumpet. I've always wanted to learn to sing better. How come I'm not making better use of my off time? You know, how come I'm not, you know, like doing all this fun stuff, learning these new skills, doing all this stuff that's so relaxing? And other than the fact that comparison is the thief of joy, so comparing yourself to other people can be a dangerous, dangerous, slippery slope to go down because your context is always going to be different than theirs. I started thinking about my life, and once I got over the kind of feeling of like shame that had overcome me and started asking myself, what have I been doing with the extra 40 hours that have come out of me, you know, no longer working 60 hours a week? And I've come to realize that I've been doing the self-work. I thought I was doing self-care, but I've actually been doing the self-work. So, you know, what does this actually mean? It means that I have been honestly going to see a counselor and working through some past stuff that has happened in my life. You know, it means that I've been reading books. I've been reading books about stress. I've been reading books about illness, health, even sexual empowerment and pleasure. And I haven't just been reading these books. I've been really almost studying them the way I would study, you know, like a new business thing that I wanted to learn and wrap my mind around, or the way that I would study a skill. And that's when that's when it hit me. I'm like, oh my God, I haven't been wasting this time. It's just that we don't necessarily consider self-work to be a valuable thing that we do. You know, like up until very recently, the idea of self-help books, right, were something that we sneered at a little bit. Someone who is reading self-help books, someone who's going to see like a shrink, was something that we might have looked down upon. But not only is doing this kind of work some of the most important stuff that I've been doing in my whole life, because I'm not just studying it, I'm applying it, right? It's difficult, it's uncomfortable. I'm applying it at home, I'm applying it in my business, right? Like, we don't necessarily value these things, but this is such a fallacy. This is such a fallacy because I've actually been unlocking lifelong patterns that keep me unhappy and stressed. And when I ask myself, you know, at the end of the next 3 or 4 months, let's say at the end of a quarter, I know I always think in the business terms, even when it comes to my personal life, on a personal level, what will I have accomplished? If I have accomplished, you know, learning to sing and playing trumpet, will that make me feel good? Yes. Will it unlock and defeat the patterns of overwork and stress and etc. that I've been experiencing for my whole life? Maybe not. Maybe not. Now, that's not to say that, you know, studying an instrument isn't amazing, because that probably is something that I'm going to do in the future as I continue to keep this time for myself. But that this is important. And it's not just important because I'm working on myself. It's important because it is work on the business. This is this kind of crazy sounding idea that I've come to realize in the last few months, is that the issues that we experience in ourselves and in our personal lives and in our personal relationships actually often mirror those that we experience in business. Let me let you sit on that for a sec. Let me repeat that. the issues that you experience in your personal life, whether that be in your relationships, in your household, in your friend circles, often mirror those that you experience in your business. And I challenge you, sit down, look at it, make a list, right? What are some financial things that you're experiencing, both on the bad side and on the good side? What are kind of the patterns and themes behind them? Because this isn't usually literal, it's usually a pattern or theme thing. And then do the same exercise for the business. I did this exercise in the last month or so, and it just blew my mind. Now, this isn't some magical reasoning why either. You are at the heart of both things, even if you are at the privileged point of being able to, or having established and set up the systems to support you in stepping back so that you're not, literally personally responsible for everything. You are still at the heart of your business as a leader. And so therefore, what you yourself are experiencing, the challenges you face, will mirror themselves in the experiences in your business. But the good news is that this also goes for the positive. So the self-work that I've been doing, I've actually been seeing really tangible, positive results at Anansi, right? From being a better leader. I'm just a better leader because I'm calmer. I have better perspective, better communication. I'm learning to set better boundaries. This is huge. And this means you, because if you are a leader, if you are an overachiever, if you are someone who has brought success to your organization, well, it might be that you have some boundary challenges. I know I do. And I thought I'd been working on this for years, but the more I kind of read and dug into it, the more I realized, holy cow, I have so much more work to do in this field, right? I seek now to get to the point where I don't make an agreement that I am not 100% sure that I can fulfill. Now that's a little bit off the ways, but I tend to overcommit myself, right? And I didn't realize what a bottleneck this was in my business. I didn't realize that my team was basically, assigning me things, or I was taking things on, but they were making backup plans for what if I become overcommitted? What does that look like? Is it going to take longer because I'm doing it? Yes, the end result might be better, but what does that even mean? Because now that I'm setting stronger boundaries, that's actually forcing me to trust my team more, to delegate better, to get really real about my limitations and what I can and can't do, which has my team actually setting better strategies. Because as the face of my business, I have a team that's running marketing, I have a team that's running sales, I have a team that's doing all of this different type of stuff, but I'm still at the heart of it as the face, right? I have to make these recordings. I have to do a whole bunch of stuff that me being more self-aware, me setting better boundaries, being calmer, more compassionate, a better communicator, holy cow, is it just making everything so much easier. So we're actually hitting our numbers faster, even though I'm in some ways stepping back, but it is hard work. I will say that. And last but not least, I'm leading by example. Now, we talk a lot about values within the business. We talk a lot about systems and processes that you can set up. But I will tell you this, if you are setting up systems and expectations and talking about values, but you yourself are not working to live them every day, then your team's getting mixed messages, man. And that doesn't mean that you have to be perfect. In fact, I think that the vulnerability that I'm experiencing, that I'm allowing myself to experience, that I'm putting on myself, in fact, by recording this, by talking to my team, to being honest to my team even about the self-work that I'm doing and what that looks like, and being supportive for them doing that sort of work as well, and still being awesome at my job, still meeting my deadlines and getting my shit done. In fact, I'm actually meeting my deadlines more and getting my shit done better and more cohesively. Man, it's just so powerful. It's so powerful because now I'm seeing the people who have been with us a year, 2 years, even going on 3 years. I'm seeing the changes in them as they're starting to live it and they're starting to be better leaders, and if you can train amazing leaders in your business by example, then your business is just going to be so supercharged compared to where it could be. My business, I'm just so grateful because in the last few months, in the last year, as I have been doing this self-work and embracing it, I'm watching the team start to thrive, start to spread their wings and need me less and less. That's terrifying, but also so powerful because I'm truly seeing how we can go faster and further than I could have ever dreamed because of basically trickle down is a term that has a lot of problems, but the waterfall effect, right? Because it's not a trickle, it's a waterfall. Like, I'm going through this work, I'm being real about it, and other people are seeing it and they're being like, wow, this is someone who practices what they preach. That's so powerful. Anyway, to sum up, working on yourself, as long as it's real, it's self-aware, it's hard work, right? That reflects in the strength of your business. So don't just hope that you'll have time to do some self-work or some self-care. Freaking schedule it in. Put something on the calendar, whether it's an hour, whether it's a day, whether it's a week. Make sure you're giving yourself that space, not just to relax, not just to step away from the business, but actually do something to challenge yourself to be better. You know, that's not just magically like, you're like wagging a finger at yourself to be better. No, like do the work, read a book, listen to a podcast. Now on top of my business podcast, I listen to an amazing podcast called Stress Proof by Susan Choi, which is for overachievers to help you process your feelings and your stress more. Holy cow, that's like 20 minutes a day, maybe half an hour a day. But the impact that that's had in my personal life and on my business is just without parallel. So hopefully this helped you. Hopefully this inspired you to do some of that hard digging, to embrace being a little bit more self-aware, a little bit more vulnerable. Regardless, I hope you have an excellent rest of your day.